Welcome! This is Like It's 1985, and this is my review of Transformers Prime Robots in Disguise Deluxe Class Knockout. And of course, Knockout here is in vehicle form. And starting off with the vehicle form, one thing a lot of people comment about is the different colors on this particular figure. Typically, well, especially in the vehicle form here, you've got the red here, pretty standard red. But then you have this maroon color on the top of the hood, the roof of the vehicle, part of the quarter panel, and the bumper. And that maroon on the side here, as you can see, fades into a silver. Or I guess you could say the silver fades into maroon, either way. But, you know, you can see there it's on the side of the vehicle, which I don't think is quite cartoon accurate to the Transformers Prime Knockout character. I could be wrong, but I think I've heard a lot of people say it's not really completely accurate, and that's why one of the major things they were saying about the paint job or the choice in colors on Hasbro's part. But yeah, it is what it is. That's what we were given by Hasbro, so it doesn't bother me too much, but something to be aware of if you're thinking of buying this figure and you're hoping for a cartoon accurate vehicle mode. So yeah, vehicle mode, really nice. Sports car mode. It's got a lot of detail here on the front grille. And you can see here on both sides you have ports here. And the weapon that Knockout comes with is this staff/trident. And for robot mode, you can actually separate it. It just pegs into there. It swings around on that peg. You could, if you want to, actually plug it into the side of the vehicle for storage or for a vehicle weapon, I guess. It doesn't look too bad, I guess. But the ports on either side also accept the Dark of the Moon Mech Tech weapons, at least from the deluxe class figures anyways, but there you go. So you have that playability option as well. Now the second point I'd like to bring up is the size of the vehicle mode, and this has been brought up in other reviews. This is a rather small vehicle mode. To illustrate that, I'm going to bring in a deluxe figure from the movie line. Yep. You can see the size difference there. These are both quote-unquote deluxe figures, but as we know, since the Dark of the Moon and up until Transformers Prime, they've been Hasbro has been, you know, downsizing the size of their figures for the Transformers line. So yeah, these should be, in reality, if they were in scale, should be about the same size. I mean, there's obviously a very big size difference there. So there is that. But I wouldn't be too concerned about it, because I think most people aren't going to be displaying their, you know, Transformers Prime figures with their movie line figures. I could be wrong, but if you're not planning to display these two lines together, then you don't need to worry about that. So enough about comparing the movie line deluxe toys with the current Prime deluxe toys. Let's go ahead and just compare the current RiD line within the same line. So here we have RiD Wheeljack, RiD Hotshot / Bumblebee. They all should be in scale with one another. But I don't think the Knockout figure is in scale. Yeah, that doesn't seem quite right there. You can see the comparison there. It's not as bad as the comparison with the movie line toy, but still, I think it's just a little bit off in terms of the scale. And here we have the Hotshot / Bumblebee mold. And we saw in the actual cartoon these two characters on screen together a lot. And they should be roughly the same size in terms of scale. Now if we compare them head on here, you can see the Hotshot / Bumblebee has a wider body, and compared to here, where it's much more narrow, and it shouldn't be that pronounced. The difference between the two should not be that pronounced. It should be less of a difference if we're talking about scale. So something to be aware of. You know, it's one thing to say, okay, well, this is not in scale with the previous Revenge of the Fallen deluxe class figures, but it's another thing to say, well, it's slightly out of scale with even with the RiD deluxe figures. So I don't know how much that bothers you, but it's something to be aware of. Again, you can see with Wheeljack, wider body compared to Knockout. So something just to be aware of. With that said, let's go ahead and move on to the transformation into robot mode. So overall, I would say the transformation into robot mode for the Knockout figure is rather easy. The only tricky part becomes when you transform the actual arms. And I'll be showing that in just a minute here. Overall, this wave, including Knockout, Hotshot, and Viacon, all three of those figures were rather easy to transform. So I was happy to see that. Easy to learn, easy to review. On the side of Knockout's legs here, you can see there's a bit of ugly kibble. So that's unfortunate, but you don't really see that from the front, looking at the figure face on. Untab the front section of the vehicle, split apart the roof, which become the arms. And here's the sort of the tricky part. You basically want to rotate this whole assembly, which includes the wheel and the door, around just about 180, and do the same thing, 180 rotation here on the other side. And just get those out to the side, and those will become the arms. And the key here is to realize that where the shoulder armor is. The shoulder armor is that gray piece there. So you want to rotate that into the correct orientation. That will dictate how the rest of the arm transforms. You want to fold out the hand, and you want to collapse the gray piece there into the door, like that. And then close in the roof, which becomes the other part of the arm. And of course you do the same thing there, and you can see the shoulder armor is on top there, so that's the way you want the arm to look. And same deal over here. The best way that I know how to do it is just to make sure that the shoulder armor is on top, like there, and then the rest of the arm just kind of falls into place based on that orientation of the shoulder armor. So fold out the hand, close up the door there, and that forms the arm. So moving up top here, you want to take care of the top section of the vehicle. You can see those two sides of the front end become the sort of like the shoulder armor or shoulder pieces. You want to fold out the head, which is attached to that center part of the hood. And you want to make sure you fold this piece all the way up until it can't go any farther, because if you don't do it, it will not slot into place. It won't have far enough reach to slot into place into the waist. And this is the part of the waist I really like. This part of the transformation I really like is the waist. You can see it folds around the sides and tabs into place. Really nice bit of transformation there. And finally, the torso pieces, or the shoulder armor here, kind of just it slots into place onto the center section of the hood. There's actually a groove there that rests in. So robot mode looks pretty good from the front. From the back, it looks a little bit strange. You do have these peg holes here, and you can peg in the staff weapon here for storage on his back. There is a little bit of gap you can see there in the chest area. It's not going to be noticeable from the front though. Now, in terms of cartoon accuracy, apparently these wheels are supposed to be sticking up above his shoulders, so that when you look at him head on, the wheels are actually up about here. And you can achieve that look, but apparently that's not the official transformation, because you have to basically untab these shoulder sections here, or torso sections, and you can actually free those up, allowing you to actually rotate these down, and therefore rotating the tires / wheels up like that, because the wheel assembly is attached to this shoulder piece here. So you do have that option if you want to, but then you have this free like that, so it's not actually secure as it would be if you actually have it pegged properly into the chest. So let's move on to just a size comparison. Now, the size in robot mode is not as bad as it was in vehicle mode. So I will bring in Wheeljack here. And he might be a little short. I'm not sure. I don't think we ever saw them together in the actual cartoon. But there's Wheeljack. And I'll bring in Hotshot / Bumblebee. And just a height comparison there. So just on raw height, he compares pretty well. Wheeljack is a little bit taller, but that may be just accurate to the actual cartoon. So even though he is really small in his vehicle form, he does not look bad at all in robot form here in terms of size comparison. So moving on, let's take a look at articulation. Of course, I mentioned before that you can free up these shoulder pieces here, allowing for movement of them, but for now we'll just leave those on there. The head is on a ball joint, and while we're talking about the head, you can see pretty nice sculpt, if I can get the focus here. And it does have some light piping for his eyes. But yeah, that's on a ball joint there. You do have a shoulder here on the ball joint, a swivel at the bicep, a bend there at the elbow, and the hand itself is on a ball joint. There is no waist articulation. However, the hips move freely, / legs, back really far, forward, and out to the side. A swivel at the thigh, and a bend at the knee. Also in terms of just the overall look, I kind of pointed this out during the transformation process, but they have this ugly chunk of plastic here. It's not filled in at all because that's just due to the transformation. So there is that. But looking at the at the feet head on, that's not a big deal, but just something to be aware of in terms of the overall look. And of course, Knockout does wield his weapon. Now, I will tell you, however, off camera, this was a pain in the butt to get the actual weapon in his hand. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the mold in terms of how the palm of the hand is molded, but it fell out many, many times, and it was just a matter of finding that sweet spot in order to get the actual weapon to stay in his hand. So that's one thing I don't really like about the weapon. You can't actually take it apart, and that's the other thing, is it comes apart really easily. It's just held in by a peg, and it just comes out whenever you don't want it to. But theoretically, you could actually have weapons in two hands like that. It's just a matter of finding the sweet spot, like I said. And of course, as I mentioned before, it does have a peg on here, and you can certainly peg it on the back for like storage, whatever way you think looks good. Maybe like this. I don't know, but you get the idea. It can store back there. Mech Tech weapons. You could probably store one back here. Yeah. So you can weaponize him with the latest in DOTM Mech Tech weaponry. So there is that as well. So final thoughts on Transformers Prime, Robots in Disguise, Deluxe Class, Knockout. Well, I have to say, when I first watched the initial reviews of this figure before actually having it in hand, I was a bit disappointed. But actually having the figure in hand and playing around with it, I'm not quite as disappointed as before. There are still problems, obviously, with this figure. One being the fact that in vehicle form, the scale, even with comparisons with other Robots in Disguise Prime figures, it still is smaller, I think, than it should be. Cartoon accuracy, it's not really a big priority for me. I know some people it's really important to have a figure that's cartoon accurate. In my opinion, this figure is cartoon accurate enough. There are small details here and there, I suppose you could argue, that aren't quite accurate to the portrayal of Knockout in the cartoon. Not really a big deal to me, but for some of you, maybe it will be. One more thing, as we look at the packaging, you'll notice here the actual drawing here, or artwork, has the Knockout figure holding what looks to be like a drill weapon, and there actually is a saw blade also, as you can see right there. None of those weapons come with this figure, so a little bit disappointing, and like I said before, I'm not really too impressed with this weapon. It's a nice idea, but it's really flimsy, and like I said before, really hard, at least for me anyways, to get the figure to hold this weapon in its hands. So with that said, it's really up to you. I personally like it, but then again, I like Transformers and I like sports cars, so there you go. Alright, well thanks for watching. This has been a review, of course, of Transformers Prime, Robots in Disguise, Deluxe Class, Knockout. Thanks for watching.